Masquera say Zimbabwe, welcome to our channel Zim Confessions and Deep Secrets. Kana karike kutanka kukuya panino channel, please don't forget to subscribe. Kana uchiwa garoga subscribe, but don't forget to comment and share this video. Nasi Zimbabwe, takugirai nyayaburidzwa na CCC spokesperson a promise Mkwananzi ababuda vachitaura vakamirira the faction yorutungamirirwa na Jameson Timba abuda vachitaura achiti zvamira mushe muZimbabwe chikumbira Sadc kuti vanenge vachipindira panyaya corruption zvakare incompetent leadership, authoritarian political repression and corruption iri kuitika muZimbabwe. Vabuda vachitaura izvi vachiti Sadc leaders varikufanira kubatsira Zimbabwe ahead of the upcoming Southern African Development Community Sadc Community Summit iri kuitwa muHarare next month. Vabuda promise Mkwananzi vachitaura vachiti Zimbabwe faces a deepening political crisis characterized by narrowing democratic space, arrests, political persecution and weaponization of the law. At the center of the crisis is tragic leadership failure, political and institutional illegitimacy, corruption and moral decadency. In the advent of the Sadc visit, it is our fervent hope that Sadc will live up to its Sadc election observer mission report and help Zimbabwe resolve its electoral dispute in order to forestall the legitimacy challenges that continue to hinder political progress and economic transformation in the country, with adverse effects in the region. As we mark 40 days since Senator Timba and 78 others have been detained without bail, it is imperative to restate the unjustified circumstances of the arrest and brutalization. Honorable Timba and others were arrested on the 16th of June 2024, on a day recognized worldwide as the Day of African Child, and which our movement has historically and traditionally commemorated. Furthermore, they were conducting a private commemoration at a private space at Honorable Timba's residence. To be specific, they were not in breach of any law, nor a threat to peace and public order. Yet the police, without provocation, brutally pounced on them, assaulting them with baton sticks and tear gas before arresting and denying them bail. The excessive use of force in this case highlights the regime's unnecessary fears, insecurity and paranoia, and is unacceptable in what is meant to be an independent and democratic Zimbabwe. It is common cause that the August 2023 harmonized elections were fraudulent, flawed, and did not produce a legitimate and outright winner. This is acknowledged by all election observer missions, including Sadc. This means that the government currently in place in Zimbabwe is illegitimate and not properly constituted in terms of the laws of Zimbabwe. It is a de facto government. This is further exacerbated by the unlawful recall of our parliamentary and local government representatives elected on the same disputed elections. This has delegitimized the current parliament. The urbanization and capture of the judiciary and the disputed presidency of Mr. Mnangagwa means that Zimbabwe now suffers political and institutional illegitimacy. The three key institutions of the state, namely the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, have been bastardized and delegitimized. It is our considered view that the coming of Sadc into Zimbabwe is a welcome and rare opportunity to help foster a political solution to the Zimbabwe challenges, restore legitimacy, and avert the deteriorating political situation. The issue of the disputed elections ought to be foremost on the Sadc agenda, with a view to facilitate dialogue and ultimately a political settlement between the two contending presidential candidates, namely Advocate Nelson Chamisa and Emmerson Mnangagwa. There is no other alternative to this dialogue. Zvabuda zvitaurwa naPromise Mkwananzi muZimbabwe, tingaziva kuti nona sei nyaya iyi tinokuunduwisai odhera Mkwananzi achitaura pamusoro penyaya yemamadza zvamuri kufunga mucomment section.
Thank you and welcome members of the press to this press conference. My name is Promise Mkwananzi. I'm the national spokesperson for the Citizens Coalition for Change. Zimbabwe faces a deepening political crisis characterized by narrowing democratic space, arrests, political persecution, and weaponization of the law. At the center of the crisis is the tragic failure of leadership and institutional and political illegitimacy, corruption, and moral decadence. In the advent of the Sadc visit, it is our fervent hope that Sadc will live up to its SIOM report and help Zimbabwe resolve its electoral dispute in order to forestall the legitimacy challenges that continue to hinder political progress and economic transformation in our country, which has adversely affected the region. As we mark 40 days since Senator Timber and 78 others have been arrested and detained without bail, it is imperative to restate the unjustified circumstances of their arrest and brutalization. Honorable Timber and others were arrested on the 16th of June 2024, a day recognized worldwide as the Day of the African Child, and which our movement has historically and traditionally commemorated. Furthermore, they were conducting a private commemoration at a private space at Honorable Timber's residence, to be specific. They were not in breach of any law, nor a threat to peace and public order. Yet the police brutally pounced on them, assaulting them with baton sticks and tear gas before arresting and denying them bail. The excessive use of force in this case highlights the regime's unnecessary fears, insecurities, and paranoia, and this is unacceptable in what is meant to be an independent and democratic Zimbabwe. Since their inhumane and degrading treatment, Senator Timber and others were arrested and remain in political detention, denied their right to bail and living in squalid conditions. Several members of the detained sustained varied degrees of injuries emanating from police beatings and brutality. For example, Tambudzai Makoko sustained a fractured leg which has gone septical and continues to pour out pus with a possibility of being amputated. The 3 others were beaten and their eardrums burst, and no medical care has been given, save for administration of basic painkillers, which is a far cry from the severe medical attention they require. Maureen Dina is detained with her 1.5 years old baby, exposed to unhygienic prison conditions. As if this is not enough, Maureen lost her other child and was denied the right to go and bury him, ironically reminiscent of the Ian Smith regime that denied Robert Mugabe and many others to go and bury their loved ones. Nicole Chabata, a Form 4 student and O-level candidate, has continually been denied bail to allow her to pursue her studies and prepare for examinations. Another inmate who has a disability was brutally assaulted and dislocated his leg, and there's a possibility of double disability owing to state brutality. In response, the party has continued to organize and coordinate support and solidarity to the affected through court solidarity, daily upkeep, of the detained, medical and legal support, counseling, prison visits, and sustained political pressure for their release, and that this case remains on the local and international agenda. Citizens, you are reminded that their trial commences on the 29th of July 2024. You are employed and called upon to turn out in your numbers to offer solidarity and support, to send a message to the government that the weaponization of the law to punish and silence legitimate opposition leaders and human rights activists should not and will not be part of our political culture. In short, it is a call for local, regional, and international solidarity to voice out our concerns against the use of the law and the justice system for political persecution of opponents. Significantly, it is worth noting that this arrest of Senator Timber and others is not the only case of political arrest and persecution since the August 2023 disputed harmonized elections. A few days ago, more than 60 activists of the Zimbabwe National Students Union were brutally and violently arrested, including their national president, Emmanuel Sitima. The statistics below highlight the escalating and disturbing trend of political persecution, including 3 rape cases in Mzarabani, displacements, evictions of villagers by chiefs, and many others. Presently, the top leadership of the alternative is under attack and under siege, either in detention, in hiding, or from one form or another of threats. Many are under threats of arrest and abduction and torture for merely being members of the opposition and the alternative. Several leaders have reported receiving anonymous calls threatening them. Church leaders who participated in the petition in Zambia have already been threatened and they fled their homes. Corruption. The government of Zimbabwe has been the chief perpetrator of corruption, rent-seeking, and plunder of state resources, awarding lucrative contracts to themselves, their kith and kin, and their cronies and proxies. This is the root cause of the continued failure and regression of the economy, pushing millions of our citizens into abject poverty and starvation. The partisan distribution of national resources extends to food distribution, which has been highly politicized and weaponized against those perceived to hold opposing views. A prominent example is the late Mboneni Ncube's family, who have repeatedly been denied food. Mboneni was brutally murdered by suspected ZANU-PF activists at an opposition campaign rally in Kwekwe. Several high-profile corruption cases have been reported and exposed, but no arrests have been made. Mr. Wikinau Shivayo, who has been named in several high-profile scandals, remains not only scot-free, but boastful that nothing will happen to him. We continue to vehemently denounce corruption and call on members of the public to report, expose, and denounce corruption whenever and wherever it raises its ugly head. Political and institutional illegitimacy. It is common cause that the 23rd August 23 harmonized elections were fraudulently flawed and did not produce a legitimate and outright winner. This is acknowledged by all observer missions, including Sadc. This means that the government currently in place in Zimbabwe is illegitimate and not properly constituted in terms of the laws of the country. It is a de facto government. This is further exacerbated by the unlawful recall of our parliamentary and local government representatives elected on the same disputed election. This has delegitimized the current parliament. We insist on the reinstatement of the unlawfully recalled elected members and the removal of imposters who were imposed by Chabang and others in connivance with ZANU-PF. The weaponization and capture of the judiciary and the disputed presidents of Mr. Mnangagwa means that Zimbabwe now suffers political and institutional illegitimacy. The three key institutions of the state, namely the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, have not only been bastardized, they have also been totally delegitimized. In that regard, it is our considered view that the coming of Sadc into Zimbabwe is a welcome and rare opportunity to help foster a political solution to Zimbabwe's challenges and restore legitimacy and avert the deteriorating political situation. The issue of the disputed elections ought to be foremost on the Sadc agenda, with a view to facilitate dialogue and ultimately a political settlement between the two contending presidential candidates, namely Advocate Nelson Chamisa and Mr. Mnangagwa. In our view, there is no alternative to dialogue. There is no alternative to a political settlement. We demand the immediate and unconditional release of Honorable Timber and others, and many others who are in detention, who are before the courts, who are being persecuted. We demand that Sadc puts the question of legitimacy in Zimbabwe top on its agenda as they come to help resolve the Zimbabwe crisis. We demand and denounce the abrupt end of corruption and many other ills that have deprived our society of the progress that we so need. Thank you.